Are you doing all the right exercises to try to fix your back and buttock pain? Things like clamshells and bridges, or pelvic tilts and bird dogs, or even trunk twists to try to loosen the spine, but it's not working. This was Rob's experience, who after 3 months and $2,700 spent on traditional PT, where the exercises change every single week, he was still stuck with lower back pain and wasn't getting anywhere thanks to following what he refers to as
a random process that maybe was successful in some ways and certainly not successful in others, and I just had no idea of knowing.
And after just 1 day inside my program, he learned how to go from sitting to standing pain-free. And in 3 weeks, he was 58% improved. And in 6 weeks, he was able to sleep for 7 to 8 hours. He was hiking 6 miles, biking 25 miles, and able to lift weights again. And all of this had him wondering.
Now, this is such a simple process, but I don't know why every PT doesn't do it.
So as a top 1% specialist in my field, in this video, I want to walk you through the exact 4-step pain relief process that Rob followed, and you can too, so that you can quit doing a random sheet of exercises. Instead, you can become more scientific along your pain relief journey. Now notice right away that we don't begin with exercise or movement as medicine as the first step. Why? You can do all the best stretches in the world that you want, but if there's something in your environment that's pouring gas on the fire, that's fueling the issue, think a habit or routine, something you don't know yet, physically or mentally, then the exercises won't work. So this is why the first step is to optimize your healing environment. Think physically, if you're constantly digging into the area of pain with your thumb, or paying for someone else to give you deep tissue massages, or foam rolling, or sitting on a tennis ball, that will aggravate the problem. Mentally, if you're constantly researching, talking about, and or focusing on your symptoms, this can increase the sensitivity of your nervous system and make your pain worse. And as the old saying goes, you can't out-exercise a bad diet. And it just makes sense, because if you're trying to lose weight, you can run on a treadmill all day, but if you eat junk food for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it just won't work. And so just as you can't out-exercise the bad diet, you can't out-exercise a yucky healing environment either. And so when it comes to optimizing the healing environment, there are 4 things that we must do to accomplish this. So first things first, we need to calm muddy waters. If you're doing a million different things trying to solve your problem, then this will create more confusion and chaos instead of clarity. We've got to stop doing those things. Secondly, we want to stop poking the angry bear. Physically, again, poking, tennis balls, massage guns, all those things. Mentally, focus, fear, attention. These things can fuel the symptoms and keep them alive, make them more angry. And then we need to consider a concept I call morphing motions. This idea of helping you identify certain motions which are painful or problematic, and how they might show up in your life in ways you don't know yet, so that then we can tweak them or modify them so you can find more comfort. So when it comes to calming muddy waters and poking the angry bear, Rob was doing all these things. The McGill Big 3, bunch of PT exercises, trying to do all sorts of things because he wanted to desperately get out of pain as quickly as possible, but it was all just muddying the waters and making things worse. And so what we did is we stopped all of that. We stripped away everything, helped him separate the signal from the noise, what mattered from what didn't matter, and let things calm down. And now he can gain clarity and be focused on naturally solving his back and hip problem throughout the program. And that brings us to morphing motions, the process of understanding how your painful motions are showing up in your life in ways you don't know yet. That's the tricky part, so that you can then tweak them or modify them. And so in order to help you understand this morphing motions concept, I have everyone go through a series of 6 different motions on the right and left side of the body. And we use a scale then to rate how painful or yucky these motions are. So we go through these motions 1 rep, 1 time, and you can see the scale here. If a motion is not painful, there's no score. Or if it's yucky, painful, reproduces your symptoms, it's yucky, and it's either low, medium, or high. The higher the number, the more yucky or painful the problem is. And you can see here Rob's yucky motions. So he had a painful left knee to chest, a painful figure 4 on the left side, and a painful leg raise. And these things show up in life as pain triggers. Secretly, these motions are baked into his life in ways he's not aware of yet. Upon further review of his case and more detective work, we found that leg raise was showing up in many different ways. For example, you can see here, this is a leg raise. This is how he was sitting, watching TV, or reading a book at night. That was causing problems. It was showing up in the way that he was biking. So we'll talk about how we tweak that in a moment. It was showing up in his workout, a leg raise, a leg raise, a leg raise when he was driving, and then the way he was getting up and getting out of a chair. This brings us to tweaks. How do we change these things? Tweaks are the act of temporarily modifying the way we move or the way we do things so that you can find more comfort. Here's what we did for Rob. Here were the ways that his leg raise was showing up. So what we had him do is we simply had him bend his legs or move to a recliner or something different that didn't put him in a straight leg position, a leg raise position. We had him tweak how he was riding his bike, maybe lower the seat a little bit, or just ixnay it altogether and just focus on walking to remove that leg raise completely temporarily. In his workouts, we need to help highlight how leg raises could show up so he wasn't doing these things constantly. In a row, a bent over row, a deadlift, in the way that he might be strengthening his legs or even doing certain stretches. We've got to tweak or stop these things temporarily. Instead of bending forward and putting himself in a perfect leg raise position, he has a yucky leg raise on his left. So why not do it on his right? That was pain-free. And we probably wouldn't want to have him do a squat lift because he also had a yucky knee to chest, and that's a knee to chest motion. When it comes to driving, we had him move his seat a little bit closer, maybe put something underneath his heel, then also open up what we call the hip trunk angle so he could be more reclined back and less in a leg raise. Then I want to talk more about this. I'm going to demo how many people get up when they have back, butt, or sciatica problems in a guarded way that actually places them in a leg raise position and makes it harder for them to accomplish this task. Many people with back and buttock pain stand up like this. So you can see the leg raise position, and then they lead with arching their lower back. So this places a lot of strain through their lower back and makes it less efficient. It makes it harder on the lower back and buttock muscles. Versus, picture as though there's a rope connected to the front of your pants, the belt line, and you put nose over toes, and then you pull the hips through. This is a more efficient way to stand and is often less painful. And you can see here that by understanding this concept, he was able to go from sitting to standing pain-free. And since applying the tweaks and reducing how often his yucky leg raise motion shows up in his day-to-day life, he's astounded at how effective they have been, as all of his pain trigger scores have improved after just 1 week. And so now that we've optimized the healing environment, we might want to just jump into using movement as medicine, but we can't, because as the old saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. We need to set up a baseline and tracking system so we know what's working versus what's a waste of time. And so just like you would never try to build a house without a tape measure, or bake a cake without measuring spoons, or step on a scale to lose weight, or even check your blood pressure if you do want to manage that, getting out of pain should be no different. You need some objective numbers and data to make decisions about what's working versus what's not. And so I created a private healing log, a tracking system that everyone uses. ISU tracks 6 numbers once a week. You can see yucky motions, pain trigger scores. And the beauty of this process, you've seen this before, this total body scan, is that not only can we use it to discover through morphing motions what your yucky motions are, but we can also start to establish objectively by assigning certain numbers given the scale to the things which are painful. And then we have your top 3 pain triggers, and now we can use this to retest once a week, roughly at the same time, to see if what you're doing is working or not working and look at the trend. We want to make decisions based off data, not what you or I or someone else thinks or feels. So now that we've optimized the healing environment mentally and physically, we have a tracking system. Now, and only now, can we use exercise or movement as medicine. Let's talk about that as it's step 3. Consider the goal of taking any medicine as never to take as much as possible. It's to take as little as needed, if any. Rob felt the same way, but he wasn't doing that, right? So he was doing the McGill Big 3. He was doing the curl up and the side plank on the right side and the left side and the right bird dog and the left bird dog. Call it not the McGill Big 3, call it the McGill Big 5. 5 different exercises at minimum all at once. And then he was doing clamshells and bridges and spinal rotations and stability ball things. He was essentially mixing 11 different things together, motions together, pills together. And this is no different than taking 11 different medications at one time and wondering why you don't feel well or why things aren't working. And so if we're going to adopt this idea of using movement as medicine, then we want to find one safe motion that is immediately effective at the right prescription for you. Now, this brings us to the hunting for motions process. This is how we identify through testing, not guessing, what one motion is going to be best for you. And for Rob, what it looked like is we test, we find a yucky motion that we want to see get better, then we do something that's safe, a motion as treatment, then we retest to see what happens for same, better, or worse. And what this allows you to do is break up from your medical diagnosis or the labels that you've been given. This is what Rob was told he had via an X-ray and MRI of his back and his hip. You can see here that he has degenerative changes and stenosis or narrowing at all kinds of different levels in the spine. What is physical therapy or movement as medicine going to do about that? Good luck, right? So he also has end-stage or severe osteoarthritis of his left hip joint, many tears of his muscles, bursitis, more muscle issues or tendon issues here as well. And so as I hope you can imagine, it's difficult to fix that, or it can be overwhelming for you. But in Rob's case, or in your case, why not just fix your yucky motion? Why not just fix this? Now the only question becomes is what motion are we going to use to unlock that? So in Rob's words, you are not your MRI. So try not to put yourself in the box with the label of what your MRI says or your diagnosis, because it can be tough to get out. It can be a trap. But where do you begin hunting for motions? I found there's roughly 118 different movement pills or options that you could take within that movement pharmacy. Well, after review of Rob's case, his specific symptoms matched closely with a very specific pain pattern, which led us to start here. We started with what you might call a clamshell exercise, or what I call figure 4 strength. And we can do it on the right side of the body and the left side of the body. This isn't just one exercise, it's two, on the right and on the left. And I had him go through 1 rep 1 time, and what he found is that the right one was safe, I call it a yummy motion, but the left one hurt like heck. So we are not going to do or plug into the hunting motions process the yucky motion. It's off limits. Because in most people, you'll probably find this too, if you do a yucky motion over and over again, the chance that you're going to feel better is not very high. So yucky motion is off limits. Now we plug this motion in to that test, treat, retest process to see if we know it's safe, if it's going to be effective for him. So we tested and we found a yucky motion. His leg raise was a 40 out of 100. Remember, the higher the number, the worse it is on that scale. Then we treated using a yummy safe motion. And what we did is we did 3 times of holds. He was holding this position until he was tired. Then he immediately retested his painful left leg raise and he found, the number's the same. It didn't work. It's safe, but it wasn't effective immediately. So guess what? Next, we're not going to do that. We're not going to use that as medicine. So then the next motion we plugged in was a standing side leg raise. And again, it's 2 motions in one. On the right side and on the left side, just doing 1 rep to make sure it's okay. He found this was safe and this was safe. But we can't mix 2 things together because that would be unscientific. So we start with just this one. So we plugged it into the process that you just saw, and we found is after doing this 3 sets of 10 reps, he immediately retested his yucky leg raise, and while it was still somewhat problematic, it went from a 40 to a 20. That's 50% better immediately. And so then, following some basic rules or logic, if something makes you immediately better, it tells us that, well, not only is it safe, but it could help us out. So we bottled it up and we used it as medicine. Every medicine on the back of the container has a dose, how much, a frequency, how often, the timing of when you should take it for the max benefit. The dose in his case, well, we proved that 3 sets of 10 reps worked just fine for him. The frequency, how often, I have him do it 3 times a day. And the timing of when he does it, or when you want to think about using your movement as medicine, is when it makes most sense. So if he was going to a walking or hiking later in the day, well, he wouldn't want to do it here. He would want to use it and take the pill right before he went up the mountain. Think of how you could use movement as medicine for yourself too. So the timing matters. And now you might have caught that we did the leg raise on the right side, but his pain is here on the left side. So why did we treat here on the other side? And I get this question all the time. This is a previous YouTube video I created. It said, so I don't understand. Why would you do the exercise on the opposite side of the pain? Basically, it makes no sense. And Rob kind of had the same question.
Doing the side raise, leg side raise out to the side. I was so skeptical that was going to work. And then I retested. I was like, are you kidding me? Because clamshell hurt like hell. And then I do the side raise out to the side. I'm like, well, this isn't going to do anything. All it did was tire my, glute medius. Nope. Like, so improved. It's crazy.
So one thing you might want to consider is that sometimes the most painful area of the body is the last area that you want to start treating. Why? Because if you play with fire, you might just get burnt. And sometimes treating the opposite side makes a lot of sense because the opposite side, the right side in Rob's case, even though the pain is on his left side, is not outside of his body. It's not in a different body. It's all part of the same system. And so in many ways, it makes sense that moving any other part of the body could potentially impact this area, and it may just be safer. And so this brings us to step 4, getting back to life. And when getting back to full speed, we want to consider this idea of measure twice, cut once. And so Rob's old way of getting back to full speed was throwing a bunch of exercise at things, and then when he did have a good day, he'd jump back into things within the week. And surprise, he'd have a major setback. And this is not what we want to do. Basically, you're setting yourself up for failure. Rob wanted to get back to many things: hiking, biking, skiing, and lifting weights. He wanted to basically know when it was okay to do so. And to answer that question, I like to use data. And most people are ready to start to get back to things that they enjoy when they're about 50% improved. In this case, by week 3, he was 58% better. And so rather than getting back to everything all at once, the hiking, biking, skiing, weights, we just picked one. And we said, okay, let's get back to hiking. That seems like something that would be a good start. And there's 2 things we want to consider in order to make sure that this is actually safe and he doesn't have a setback, a preventative measure, if you will. Number 1, we want to consider mind over matter, meaning we want it to be safe here before it's safe physically to the body. And then a motion monitoring system that we set him up with so that he felt confident he could get back to hiking. And so let's talk about mind over matter. So what I like to start with is a question. And I asked Rob this question, he asked himself this question, and maybe you should ask yourself this question too when you get to that point. Do you think that you could hike or bike or ski or lift or stand, whatever it may be, for an hour, a half an hour, or maybe a distance, a mile, 2 miles, something like that? And you want to reverse engineer it. So maybe when I say an hour or a mile, you say, couldn't do that, doesn't feel safe. Well, what about half a mile? What about 30 minutes? What about 15 minutes? And as soon as you feel like, hey, I think I could do that, I think that that would be safe, then we start there. And so you can see here that when he gets to the point of getting back to full speed, he's already doing some hiking during this post. But he says, my brain says that that should be manageable, adding or building 1 additional hour in a week to his hikes. And then he wants to reintroduce his cycling on his Peloton. And he starts with, my brain says 30 minutes is realistic. So we don't just start doing things. We start by asking ourselves that question. That becomes a litmus test to help us figure out a safe place to start. And we begin there. Now let's talk about more the physical side of things, what I call motion monitoring system. If you've been systematic and scientific like Rob has throughout this rehab process, then you've already identified your yucky motions. That's how that thing, whatever it was for you, piriformis, disc problem, osteoarthritic hip, doesn't matter, is showing up for you in the form of a yucky motion. So what we do is if he wants to go on a hike, we do this motion, and then we have him start where he feels most safe with maybe hiking 1 mile. And then when he gets to that point, he stops and retests this yucky motion. And if things are the same, meaning his yucky motion, his leg raise didn't get worse, then that motion or that activity in question is neutral. If it made him better, well, then he should probably hike a little more. It seems to be safe and okay for him, actually helping him out. And obviously, if the leg raise is deteriorating, meaning it's getting worse, his motion is becoming more yucky, then we don't want to do that. So here's how it might play out. Let's just say he walks 1 mile, he does this, he test, treat, retests his yucky motion, and it's the same. Okay, it's not making him worse. It's safe. Keep going. At 2 miles, he stops. Same thing. Same. He's still okay. He's still all right. And at 3 miles, something starts to go south. His leg raise becomes more yucky, using that yummy to yucky scale. Well, then we know that the problem lies somewhere between 2 to 3 miles, and we should probably just stack the wins at 2 miles and have him keep doing that over and over again until he gets more confident and we can maybe make the jump. Maybe we don't go from 2 to 3, we go from 2 to 2.25 or 2.5. And we slow down at that point. Hopefully this was helpful. You got to see the big picture process whereby you optimize first the environment, physically and mentally. You find the motions which are painful via morphing motions. You tweak them. You find comfort so you're not constantly pouring gas on the fire. And you need a measurement system because you can't manage what you don't measure. And so we set that up for him, and I recommend you set the same thing up for yourself. Then we use movement as medicine. One motion that is safe and immediately effective for you can be very powerful. For him, 3 10-second reps on the right side, side leg raise, 3 times a day. And then when it comes to getting back to life, a couple things to consider. Mind over matter. What do you perceive to be safe psychologically or here first before testing things out physically with your body? And then using a body-based approach whereby we set you up and we test, treat, retest your yucky motions to determine if what you're doing is okay or not. And Rob sums it up perfectly in one of his final posts. He says, I got a methodical way to add movements and activities back into my daily life. I feel empowered by testing and tracking what works and what doesn't work. It's such a simple and effective way to be your own master of healing for your body and your mind. And so if you'd like me to review your case and you're interested in working with me, just like Rob did, to speed up the process, you're not relying upon a sheet of random exercises to heal, and instead you want to take a more step-by-step scientific approach to feeling better, then just click the link somewhere below this video where you can set up a time to chat with me and submit details of your case for me to review. Thanks so much. Chat soon.